Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It is Thursday, August 7th. So, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about how much stress and what is the best way to get into, whether it's small engine repair, sales, and so forth. So, stay tuned. Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric, if you didn't already know it. And yes, this is the weekday, Monday through Friday. Today is Thursday, the 7th of August, 2025. So, what am I saying when I'm saying what level do you want to come in at? All right, there's two different strokes for this. There's my way, and then I have friends. It's their way. Is I'm not sure if mine's the better way, but it's one that I'm more comfortable with. And that is, I don't like carrying a lot of debt. I'm older in years where, that idea of carrying $200,000 over my head, I don't want it and I don't need it. But in my 20s, I wouldn't have thought twice about it. That's the difference. When you're young, you think you got a whole life ahead of you. When you're old, you think you have left years ahead of you than you did behind you. But I've got friends that also are in this business and they floor plan. And they will have the whole lot in their showroom right full of equipment. And it used to be when you floor planned, you became a dealer for, let's say, Troy-Bilt, Cub Cadet. They're all the same for that brand. And what they would do is they would set you up and they would supply you with X number of machines. And as you sold them, you got your cut, but the manufacturer got theirs too, for the unit. And then they would replace that with another unit they just sold. But never did you own them. They were there, placed there to get what they felt was maximum sales from your area. And they usually knew enough, the ones that were setting up these floor planning options with you, they were well versed on what sells in particular areas, more so than what doesn't. If you're in a city, riders aren't going to sell as good as push mowers because most people's yards are small, right? So that particular dealer may have 100 push mowers, brand new, and maybe one or two riders. Or you get out in the country where everybody has big yards. Now it's just the opposite. You have 100 riders and a handful of push mowers. Because in the country up here, at least the way I look at it, if I can't hit it with my zero turn, I'm not doing it. So when it comes to push mowing or weed eating, not a chance. But you see what I'm saying? But back then, they would set you up as a dealer, a dealership. And they had territories that you couldn't infringe on them, right? That you couldn't sell into somebody else's territory. And let's say somebody in my territory didn't get along well with me, but he did with the one next in the other territories outside of mine. He couldn't talk to them. And that kind of put the screws to that dealership because, with that person not being able to buy outside that territory, they just went and bought, let's say, a John Deere instead of a Cub Cadet versus having to deal with all this politics and everything. Well, that all changed with the internet. Now you can buy them online and have them shipped to your house. And the territories, the protected areas for dealerships are no longer there. They're not. Some will try to say they are, but they're not. And it went from companies, manufacturers setting you up as a dealer to actually you're getting a loan. It's GE Finance is who's doing it. And whether you like it or not, when you get set up with a floor plan, you are buying those units. You own them. You and the bank own them. The manufacturer is out of the loop. They got paid. Because what they found is that they'd rather have their money up front than sit there and wait and wait and wait and wait. And territories got thrown out the window when you started having dealers selling directly online, having them dropped off by a freight company. And they were doing volumes so they could do it cheaper than the local dealer. So there was no protection for the local dealer that was trying to do a dealership that was floor planning, where it had been before. Now that was all tossed out the window. And that meant when you floor plan, you were taking a loan out, so you got that debt over your head. You can say, well, I've got the machines, they're worth something. Yeah, that's fine and dandy, but they're going to depreciate every year you have them on the lot. And then if you only sell half of them, guess what? When the floor plan starts again, then they're going to ship another 100 units to you. And if you're still sitting on 50, now you're up to 150. And then the following year, what happens? You see what I'm saying? It's one of those rolling balls that will take you out. See, I have friends that are doing exactly that. And they'll tell you that they never plan on ever being out of debt. Debt doesn't bother them. That's just part of doing business. Where me on the opposite side say, I'd rather operate as debt-free as possible. Are there some things that you can invest in? Yeah. You're still going to have some debt. You're going to be either you get a mortgage on the building you're going to start the shop in or the garage. You still have payments to some kind to somebody, right? But even like with me, I own the shop. I own all the equipment. I own all the tools. I own all the inventory. But yet I have to pay taxes, land and school taxes every year, or I don't get to keep the property. And a lot of the parts that I bought years ago are not worth anywhere near what I paid for them. Not what they sold for, but what I paid for them, because they're now new old stock, and it's a hit or miss on if those units are still out there. So you have to decide what level of debt you're comfortable with. And if you needed to, could you get out of debt in a hurry? Or do you have the mindset that you have no plans of getting out of debt? And so why even try? So much will go for the glory and get whatever you can get, right? I guess. Whatever floats your boat. But I'm just showing that there are two sides to the coin. There's a side that tries to stay as debt-free as possible, and that's what I try to talk to you about. And then there's the mindset of, I'm never going to be out of debt anyway, so I might as well enjoy the ride. And there might be a lot of good to that as well. Put in the comments what you think, and what your line of logic is. And I can pretty much tell if you're older, you're going to be more debt-free. If you're younger, you're willing to take on more debt. That's what I've seen in the past. So there's a lot of things you have to into consideration before you even decide on it. And that is, do you have a good location where you can sell a lot of units? Are you well known enough that you can sell X number of units? You have to come in at the level you're comfortable at. Don't just get in over your head. Do the research. One of the things I've had customers over the years, like, Eric, why don't you carry some of the brands? We'll buy the lawnmower off you. And I said, well, it's a simple, easy answer is because the big box stores, Tractor Supply, Home Depot, Walmart, Lowe's, that I can't undersell them. They're dealing in quantity. And if I could, I would. But the one-offs, like they say, well, if you get it from a dealer, you can get the heavier duty, the four-wheel drive model. Yeah, you can get all that stuff. And I can order that for my customers. That's what they want. But I can't get the pricing because I'm not floor planning that a dealer down the road can get. If there's a dealer down the road that's floor planning with that manufacturer and they're selling a lot of units, then they're going to get a better discount on that four-wheel drive compact tractor than I could. You see what I'm saying? So it's like beating a dead horse. You're not going to get it to win a race because it's just not happening. I don't have the ability to do that. Now, does that change the fact of if my customer goes and buys it from Joe Schmo that I can't do the warranty work? Nope, I can do that. Just like any other dealer can. So, in a way, I'm not losing that customer. And if you talk to anybody that floor plans, they're not making a lot of money off those units that they're selling. And a lot of places, I'll be honest with you, have quit taking trade-ins. It doesn't matter what kind of shape they look like. No, we're not interested. If they aren't, a year or two old, top models and stuff like that they can get for half, they don't want to deal with it. And we're saying that, that's where we do make a good chunk of money, and that's on the used stuff. Like a lot of the dealerships that do floor plan are not taking the used. So that leaves the owner to have to sell it. And most owners that I know, customers, they don't want to have to deal with Facebook and dealing with people taking up their time, showing up whenever they decide to, or not showing up at all after they said they'd be there, yada, yada, yada. So they come to us and want to know what would we be willing to give them for their machine. And usually it's half of what it's worth. And like if I'm buying one right now, good chances are that unit is going to stay with me until next spring. Because most people that need a lawnmower have got one. And then the ones that have broken down right about now, you might get a hit or miss. But for the most part, it's not until next spring. So we take on a level of, it's like putting money in a cookie jar and hoping that, when you open that cookie jar, it's still good and ready to go. So, and if I get $500 for a machine, I'm selling it for $1,000. But you also have to take into consideration too, is I'm running it through the shop, and that means I'm checking it from front to back, cleaning it, checking the belts, all that stuff. So a regular service is $250 to $300 if it comes through our shop. So now the 5 is now $8. So I've got a $200 that I'm making on it, which is more than most floor planners are making per unit on their new ones. So whereas it used to be, that's where you made your money, was on the trade. You got the trade that you could sell and make money on. Not so much anymore. Don't come into it blindsided. Look at all the options. You have the internet at your fingertips, and you can research all about this floor planning. I would imagine there's YouTube videos that are just designed to talk about floor planning for Briggs or Kohler or what have you. But understand that the higher the level you go, the cheaper you get, but the more risk you have in trying to get that paid off. So on that note, you guys have a great Thursday, and we'll catch you here bright and early tomorrow morning for another day of the weekday, the final day of the weekday, Friday.